Cal State East Bay. My name is Shauna Olson Hong. I'm the Director of Counseling Services at Student Health and Counseling. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about resilience, but to put it in a larger context. So we're going to talk about what resilience is, what it is not, and also some tips to cultivate your own resilience. So resilience is the ability to persevere in the face of challenges. And I imagine that if there was anybody that didn't already realize this, the experience of COVID has taught us all that challenge is a normal part of life. So you can be doing everything right, and suddenly a global pandemic comes and turns the world upside down and forces you to adjust every aspect of your life. So challenge affects us all, and that is normal, and that's not anybody's fault. And I also want to acknowledge that adversity affects us differently depending on our identities and the communities that we belong to. So right now our nation is opening its eyes to the reality of structural oppression and recognizing that there are persistent patterns of Black men and women and children who are robbed of their humanity and killed, that there are patterns of Asian Americans being targeted and harassed, sometimes violently, in the midst of fear about COVID. And right now, even as I record this, we are awaiting a decision from the Supreme Court on DACA, and anticipating that our undocumented community might be stripped of basic protections to live and work in this country. And that's just in the last few months. So I just want to acknowledge that everyone faces challenges, and that certain communities, Black and brown communities, experience cumulative adversity every day in their lives. So before moving on to how to cultivate resilience, let's think for a second about what resilience is not. Resilience is not the expectation that every single individual who faces hardship will be able to overcome it successfully. There are so many strong and resourceful and determined and hardworking people who have been crushed by systems of oppression such as racism, and that is through no fault of their own. So we don't want to focus only on grit and the individual habits that we can use to succeed, without acknowledging that there are larger systems and structures that have a deep effect on whether or not we'll be able to push forward. We also don't want to romanticize adversity and struggle. So even though it's true, and we talk a lot in counseling about having a growth mindset, wanting to take every hard experience and learn what we can from it and make meaning of it and use it to become stronger and to grow, we don't want to ignore that suffering leaves an impact, and there is real pain and real trauma. So even though we see, even right now, people making meaning of their suffering and their experiences of racism by raising their voices for justice and taking to the streets, we don't want to forget that there is real pain there that needs to be attended to and shouldn't be romanticized or manipulated into saying it's okay because it has led to these other things. It's not okay. So let's keep that context in mind as we think about how to cultivate our resiliency, because defined carefully and put into context, resiliency is very useful. It reminds us that we can make meaning of hardship, and we can keep going even when barriers are in our way. So resiliency is not something that anyone is born with. It's something that is learned over time. And that means that if we're intentional about it, we can actually cultivate our own resiliency and strengthen it intentionally. So here are some strategies that you can use to cultivate your own resiliency. The first strategy is to identify your strengths and the resilience that you already have. So think about what has helped you get to this point already and overcome the challenges that you've already faced. These might be skills or habits. These might be social supports that have helped you to continue to move forward. They might be dreams or goals that you've set for yourself to think about, where do I want to be, and keep yourself motivated to keep pushing to get there. Think also about your wider community, because whatever challenges you're facing, it's probably not the first time that someone has faced the same situation. So think about mentors or elders in your community who can put these struggles into the context of what they have experienced in their lives and learn strategies that they've used to keep going in life. The second strategy is to think about what you have influence over. So in counseling, we often talk about the serenity prayer, which says, Lord, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So it's just the reality that there are some things we are not in control of, from a global pandemic to the assumptions that others might make about us. And there are some things that we are in control of. The words that we choose to speak, the actions we choose to take, the person that we choose to be, and the people that we choose to stand with. So focus on the power that you have right now and how you want to use that. The third strategy is to practice self-care. And remember that this journey that you're on is a marathon and not a sprint. So we all need to sustain ourselves to keep going over the long term. And that means intentionally protecting space and making habits of recharging our energy and reflecting and getting in touch with, how am I doing really? And then honoring those needs and taking care of them. This is all especially important for those who are feeling the weight of cumulative struggle over time. It's exhausting, and writer and activist Audre Lorde has a beautiful quote: "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." So when society is denying your humanity and your worth, it is so critical that you affirm those things in yourself and affirm those things in others in your community. And then lastly, when you are caught up in hardship and in struggle, remember your full self. None of us is defined just by the adversity that we face. So engage with your joy and your passions and your laughter. Make time for hobbies and activities that have nothing to do with anything other than the fact that they just light you up. And connect to people who know your full self and can honor that and love and accept you just as you are. So Cal State East Bay, we are sending you so much love and support during this time. There are lots of links in the descriptions below for additional resources that you can use to keep yourself going, to cultivate your own resilience, and to care for your mental health, because it is so important. know that we are a community at East Bay, and that we see you, and we honor you, and we stand with you, and we're here to support you.